Have you ever wondered if you could build something really complex, say an algorithmic trading system, pretty much just by having a conversation? Well, today we're going to break down exactly how that happened, how a project went from a single, simple question to a full-blown backtesting engine, all inside of Google Sheets. And it all started right here. Seriously, not with some big, detailed technical plan, but with this one super simple, open-ended question. It just goes to show you, sometimes the biggest ideas can start with the smallest spark. And that one question, well, it kicked off this whole 6-step journey. We're going to start with the absolute basic scripts. Then we'll fetch our data, hit an error, which always happens, and then fix it. After that, we layer in the actual trading strategy, scale it all up with more data, and finally, we get to the good part, visualizing the results with an equity curve. That's our roadmap. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's dive into step 1, just laying the foundation. That first prompt didn't just get a simple yes or no. It actually generated a whole set of core building blocks for working with Google Apps Script. Think of these 4 things as the bedrock for pretty much anything you'd want to build in Sheets. You get the code to access the spreadsheet itself, a way to build out your own custom menus, these little triggers that can run code automatically when you do something, and even a function for sending email alerts. This is the toolkit we're going to use for everything else. So with that foundation in place, the project starts to get real. The next request was way more specific. Okay, now let's go get financial data for TQQQ. That's a pretty popular ETF. Then let's calculate a technical indicator, the 21-day Exponential Moving Average, or EMA. And then let's chart it. And just like that, the script gets a major upgrade. It now automatically reaches out and pulls the last 120 days of TQQQ closing prices, does all the math for that 21-day EMA, creates a totally new sheet called Chart, and then actually plots both the price and the EMA right on it. We've officially gone from just some abstract code to a real visual output. But, if you've ever tried to build anything, it's never just a straight line. So now we hit step 3, the bug hunt. This is where we run into a classic, real-world problem that needs a pretty clever fix. What happened was, every time the script tried to run again to get fresh data, it just failed. Something was breaking the whole flow. And this was the culprit, a type error. The script was trying to clear out the old data before it wrote in the new stuff, but the sheet was basically saying, nope, not going to do it. That clear contents function just wasn't working. So what the heck was going on here? Well, the root cause was actually kind of fascinating. It turns out the Google Finance function doesn't just give you one value. It returns what's called a spilled array that fills up a bunch of cells at once. And you can't clear those special cells the normal way. So the fix, it was brilliant. Instead of fighting with the cells, just blow away the entire sheet and recreate it from scratch every single time the script runs. This totally sidesteps the problem and guarantees you start with a clean slate. Problem solved. All right, so our data pipeline is now rock solid, it's error-free. It was time for the really exciting part, turning all that data into an actual trading strategy. And the user provided a very simple set of rules for when to buy and when to sell. The logic is just beautiful in its simplicity, right? It's a classic EMA crossover strategy. If the stock's price crosses up and over that moving average line, that's our signal to buy. And if the price crosses from above to below the EMA, that's our signal to sell. Super clear and really easy to turn into code. And this is where the script really becomes a powerhouse. I mean, look at this. It's not just charting data anymore. It's actually generating buy and sell labels right next to the data. It's plotting little dots on the chart so you can see where the trades happened. It's creating a whole new sheet that logs every single transaction. And it's even calculating performance stats like win rate and P&L. It's getting serious now. So the system was working, which is great. But its analysis was still pretty limited. 2 very small little prompts were about to completely change the game, taking this from a small sample test to a much more meaningful full-scale backtest. At first, remember, we were only looking at the last 120 days of data. I mean, it's a decent snapshot, but it's not really a long-term test. But with one tiny request, just change the start date to January 1st, 2019, the dataset just exploded. We went from 120 days to nearly 1,800. We now have years of history to test our strategy against. That's a huge difference. Now, the second limitation was that the profit was only being calculated on a single share basis. It wasn't really simulating how a real portfolio would actually grow over time. So by adding a simulated $10,000 in starting capital, the entire logic got transformed. Now, every time there's a buy signal, the script actually calculates the maximum number of whole shares it can afford, and it tracks the cash balance just like you would in a real trading account. And that brings us to the final system. After this whole back and forth conversational process, what did we actually end up with? Let's take a look at the finished product and, more importantly, the lessons we learned along the way. So now, with just a single click, the final script generates 4 distinct, totally automated reports. You get a sheet with all the raw data, the chart with those visual trade markers, a detailed log of every single transaction, and the crown jewel, an equity curve sheet. And this right here, this is the ultimate payoff. The equity curve takes thousands of data points and all those trades and turns it into one simple, powerful picture. It shows you the hypothetical growth of that initial 10 grand over the entire testing period. This is where all that raw data finally becomes real insight. So, what are the big lessons here? First off, start simple and build up. This whole complex system literally grew from one tiny question. Second, errors are actually part of the process. That type error we hit, it forced a better, more robust design in the end. Third, small prompts can have huge results. Just changing the start date and adding some capital completely changed the game. And finally, always visualize your results. That equity curve tells a story that a table of numbers never could. This entire journey, from a totally blank sheet to a sophisticated backtesting tool, was powered by a simple back-and-forth conversation. It really leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? What complex system are you dreaming of building? And could you get started on it today? Just one conversation at a time.